No.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. And the liberals say it's conservatives who are racist.
Right?
It's common for political parties to run attack ads on each other, but usually those ads and the strategy behind them is done very, very well. Just look at the conservatives and their results. The liberals, on the other hand, have become so desperate, they set up a fake website with a laughable purpose and laughable results.
Let's take a look. So this is pierresrecord.ca. They decided to launch this on last Monday, the same day that Joe Biden decided to step down in terms of the running candidate for the Democratic Party for the United States upcoming election. Not the best time to actually launch a website when most of the world media attention is on something else, but there it is. But here it is. So this website, it seems, was built with the intent of smearing Pierre and having Canadians
get in on the fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so bizarre, and we'll show you why.
So as it says 20 years of Pierre Poilievre is enough, and you can share it, and you can add your name. Not sure why you would want to do that, but there you go.
Be on their mailing list. Why else?
Right. So it says they even have to explain to you, how does it work? So you click the clown to rank his worst moments and share them with your friends.
Exhilarating.
Okay, so you have the different ones here. So rank number 1 is define marriage as a union between one man and one woman to the exclusion of others. So basically, they're trying to take snapshots in time of quotes that he said, and they've made little shorts. Now this was almost 20 years ago.
Right, that was going to be my point, that they're taking information and clips from 20 years ago and saying that this is what he believes right now.
Right.
Which is not necessarily true. I mean, everything that we've seen, it's not true, right? And people change in 20 years. I mean, I was, 17, 20 years ago? I couldn't even vote 20 years ago. So people change a lot in 20 years, right? Their opinions change, their work ethics change, everything changes.
Well, and Pierre was in his early 20s 20 years ago. So... Well,
and I think attitudes towards gay marriage were very different 20 years ago.
Yeah, these days, nobody cares.
Right.
Right? Like, as long as... it's not going to affect, my everyday life or your everyday life. Who cares? Nobody cares. You want to get married? Get married. That's fine. But this is what they're trying to do. And you see, they have them ranked here and, work to bring American-style anti-union laws to Canada. And it's ironic because the quote that he actually is using there is he doesn't like when union members are bullied into protesting, doesn't like when they are forced to pay union dues, and doesn't like, some of the tactics that the unions use. Well, that's all true. And then... Yeah, they are. That is all true. And then it moves to some other lady who is essentially saying, Pierre's a bad man. That's basically what she says. Number 3, received a government pension at 31 and raised the retirement on hardworking Canadians. Okay, so...
We've debunked this many, many times. Why the Conservatives attempted to raise the working age, or the retirement age, I should say, from 65 to 75. It's because the CPP and OAS, they're going broke. And that was a method to attempt to get people to pay into the system for 2 years more and also take out less for those 2 years.
Well, and meanwhile, Justin Trudeau has a bill on the table to quote unquote reform, the electoral date, the election date, so that a lot more of his caucus would receive their pensions. And they have the gall to actually put this up here. So yeah, not really buying that too much.
Well, and let's just go back to that for a moment. Pierre, he could have retired with a full government pension at 31 and gone off and done consulting or whatever else, right? But he didn't. He stuck around and he's been working for Canadians to try to make this country a better place. So I think that speaks to his character as well.
So number 4, visited and courted far-right extremist groups. Yeah, so he stopped because he saw a anti-carbon tax protest, and those people, happen to have some symbols written on the door of their motorhome. Who cares?
You know what upsets me about the Liberals using this as a talking point? It's that they're essentially saying people with views who are so extreme and different from ours are not worth talking to, are not worth trying to understand, are not worth trying to sympathize with. They're horrible, they're evil, they're not meant to be associated with at all.
All the while they're adopting far left extremist views and policies.
But I mean, above and beyond that, it's that these people, their views are so awful. It's like a thought crime that they're not permitted to have them, and we won't even stop and talk to them. It's really gross. It's that division that the Liberals keep doing.
And let's go to number 5. Said Indigenous peoples need to learn the value of hard work more than they needed compensation for residential schools. So I haven't even bothered to click on many of these because they're just they're hit pieces. And this is what the left does. They take pieces from back in time and they end up just completely mischaracterizing what you're saying, and they lack all the context of what happened before that.
Well, that's it. It's taken out of context on purpose using, deceptive editing techniques, and they'll cherry pick a quote, not capturing the full context of what was being said, and try to misrepresent it for their own political gain.
This next one is absolutely crazy because it self-indicts the Liberal Party. So it says, committed to free votes, allowing his MPs to bring forward anti-abortion legislation. So there's like a couple of MPs that have, wanted to, bring down abortion, but there's like literally 2 or 3. The rest of them and the entire Conservative Party has committed to not touching abortion laws. So, but the interesting thing about this point is that this separates this into 2. Number 1, they're saying, oh, he committed to free votes. He's allowing his MPs to vote how they want instead of towing the party line on a lot of this stuff. What kind of a leader is that? Yeah,
they're permitted to vote for their constituents and what their constituents want, which may be different from province to province to province.
Shame.
Like, that's just so ridiculous. And to touch on the anti-abortion legislation, if you look at the Conservatives' policy declaration, there's 2 points to bring up. It's point number 86 that says that the Conservatives will not be voting for abortion legislation, that they have no intention on doing it. And then there's, I think it's point 13 that says we know that some topics are touchy, but we will permit our MPs to vote or abstain from voting even on the touchy subjects if they're not in cabinet, I think is exactly what it says. I'm kind of just rattling this off the top of my head, but we'll put a link to it in the description so you can go and read it yourself. The other thing their policy declaration says is that a Conservative government will not support abortion legislation. So what does that mean? That means that even if one of the backbenchers were to try to bring it up as a private member's bill, it's not going anywhere because the government, meaning the Prime Minister and the parliamentary secretaries and the cabinet, will not pass that into legislation.
Right. And in talking to some of the MPs, they've actually reaffirmed this in the discussions they've had in caucus, is that they are permitted to vote their conscience on certain things. But the only time where you quote unquote get whipped, meaning that you're strongly encouraged to vote with the party is on things like budget and supply and things like that, things that are really, really important to the government. So let's go back. Turned his back on Ukraine.
Well, it's got the least amount of votes, like, so far. It's because how long is this list? 10?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So it's only got 9,100 roughly. And we've discussed this whole turn your back on Ukraine thing as well, which it's not that they don't want free trade with Ukraine. It's that they don't want Ukraine to get saddled with a carbon tax the way we've been saddled with a carbon tax.
Well, and it was that poison bill, if you recall, because it had, the carbon pricing baked into it. So if the Conservatives voted for it, then the Liberals would be able to call them hypocrites, because they would say, well, so you support a carbon price for Ukraine, but you don't support a carbon price for Canada. And if they didn't vote for it, they could say that they're turning their back on Ukraine.
Which is exactly what they're doing.
So...
I should clarify. It's not what the Conservatives are doing. It's what the Liberals are doing. The Liberals are taking the Conservatives' votes against that particular bill and saying you're turning your back on Ukraine.
Well, and the other thing about Ukraine is if you want to send the money to help in the war against Russia, fine. However, we're sending billions and billions of dollars over there, and meanwhile, we have people living in tents.
Right. We have Canadians starving. We have 25% of our population living in poverty. That includes children. That includes the elderly. That even includes people who work full-time jobs but cannot afford a place to live because rents and mortgages are so outrageous.
So that's a problem. Next, we have pushed an anti-vaccine agenda. It wasn't an anti-vaccine agenda. It was a pro-choice vaccine agenda.
Right. See, this is what I don't understand about the Liberals. They say they're pro-choice when it comes to abortion, but they're not pro-choice when it comes to vaccines. Like, how do you square those two things in your head?
Well, they don't. And this is the thing. They are so desperate. They use anything and everything to attack the Conservatives. So this is just complete hypocrisy on this point. Next, we have use misogynist YouTube tags to court the far right supporters. Okay, so this is the best that they got. They had a staffer that put these tags against the videos, and this was really early on in Pierre's leadership tenure of the Conservative Party. So they went after him because they were using hashtag MGTOW and stuff like that. This is the best you got to come after him? Looks like Pierre's been keeping his nose pretty clean up to this point, if that's the case. So at number 10, we have said he'd use the notwithstanding clause overriding Canadians' rights.
So that's not what the notwithstanding clause is. The notwithstanding clause essentially says that the law of the government will supersede the ruling at the court level. Because what can happen is, the government will put something into law. And then at the courts, the judges can decide, they can interpret it differently, I suppose is the best way to put it. So the notwithstanding clause takes that ability away from the judges, and that it's what we say is this is the way it should be enacted. Because there's different branches of government: the legislative branch, the parliamentary branch, which is the government branch, and the court branch, or the judiciary. And these three branches need to work together to uphold the law. Now, if you have one branch, say the judiciary branch, disagreeing with the legislative branch or the parliamentary branch, what are you going to do there, right?
Well, and the other thing too is the judicial branch, their primary purpose is to execute the law. If they have the power to resist or essentially make themselves immune from the government enacting new laws, that's a problem. So the notwithstanding clause was created to ensure that the government had the power to actually change the laws that are executed within the judiciary branch. And what Pierre had said was this was at an event with the police where he was speaking, and he essentially said, If I have to use the notwithstanding clause to ensure that these violent criminals stay in jail, then I will do that.
Well, look, there was a case that I had read of not too far from here. I don't recall which municipality around here it was in, but that someone who was out on bail for sexual crimes had assaulted a 13-year-old girl while they were out on bail. Like, those things should not be happening in this country.
Well, and people are dying because people are getting arrested, going out on bail, and then going and doing it again. And Justin Trudeau just says, Pierre's a bad guy because he said he'd put these people, in jail. This is what you're getting from Trudeau. Meanwhile, Pierre is saying, I'm going to do everything possible to make sure that these people stay behind bars. And it's not like people that are arrested for shoplifting or things like that. It's violent criminals, repeat criminals, right? Like
these are hardened criminals. Yeah, like these are violent crimes.
Like if you have somebody who, takes the life of a whole family, he's not going to be allowed out under Pierre Poilievre. It doesn't matter if it's first offense. So they're going to look at violent crime very seriously. Probably like the way they did under Harper, which is why it was so low under Harper. But, there you go. And again, going back to, taking the lives or accusing Pierre of attacking Canadians' rights. Emergencies Act.
Right? Who enacted the Emergencies Act?
Bank accounts.
Yeah.
Stolen money.
And the courts have said they were not right to do it.
So...
And I mean, look at COVID. How many of our rights were taken away? Our right to freedom of assembly. We had to stay in our homes. Many people were forced to receive medical treatment against their prerogative. Trudeau wants to talk about taking away Canadians' rights. He's got a proven track record of it.
Well, Bill C-11, Bill C-18, Bill C-63. There's more things coming up. He wants to make it essentially illegal to talk positively about oil and gas. You want to talk about someone taking away rights? Don't even. So, and this goes on, followed American far-right playbook to use to us LGBT, whatever language. So all he said was radical gender ideology. That's what he said. Well, and it is radical.
It is radical. Again, I think in this country for many things, not just for this particular medical issue, but for many things, we're so quick to jump to surgery and medication that we don't focus on therapy and mental health supports. I think a lot of things can be at least ameliorated or improved with therapy. You don't have to jump straight to drugs or surgery.
And moving on, supported illegal convoy blockades. Yeah, actually, they were actually...
They were illegal, so I don't know why they're still using this. What was illegal was the use of the Emergencies Act. Let's get that right now.
Delivered a speech to a group that claimed it was a myth that residential schools robbed Indigenous children of their children. Well, they're just going by evidence, and there has been no evidence found to date.
Well, that was actually the FCPP that
the Frontier Center
delivered
for Public Policy.
it. We've had David Lease, who is I believe the vice president of the FCPP, on the show several times, and they're completely nonpartisan. David's probably one of the most nonpartisan guys I've ever talked to. Yeah. Their focus is on policy. How can we create good policy that helps as many Canadians as possible? How can you attack a nonpartisan group like that? Trudeau is just nuts.
Because they make the Liberals look bad. Because they talk about facts and not feelings.
Right. And that's it. If nonpartisan facts make you look bad, that's not the fault of the agency or the entity presenting those facts. That's your fault, Trudeau.
Made it harder for Canadians to vote. No,
I don't think so.
No.
What are they... Do we even know what they're saying about that?
No,
a lot of these we didn't even click on because they were just so ridiculous.
Yeah, literally, they take one statement and they try and make it a story. Encourage Canadians to opt out of inflation with volatile crypto. Like they seriously put that here. They seriously put that
He
here.
didn't, though.
Yeah,
what he said was that Canadians should be able to invest in crypto if they want to. He wasn't giving financial advice, but the media just loves to run with this.
Yep. Posed with someone wearing a straight pride shirt during a pride season.
Are you serious? Now he controls what other people wear on their shirts?
Yep.
Like, I know that this has been kind of like a talking point that they've tried to use, but like, are you guys still on with that?
Promote a hijab ban, use the term tar baby in the House of Commons. This is a ridiculous one, because he was talking about the carbon tax bill as if it was a child, and he called it a tar baby because it was related to, you know, the oil sands and the carbon tax. So like they're trying to turn that into a racist term.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, and the Liberals say it's conservatives who are racist.
Right. Meanwhile, they have it plastered on their website. Just saying.
Well, but this is the thing we mean when we say that they will take things out of context and make it look worse than it actually is for political gain. And that's just despicable.
But, you know, we need to be dialing down the rhetoric, right? That's what Trudeau has said. Right. And talk down the pandemic supports that help. Yeah. So they talked against our policies that we put in. So shame on them.
You know, I think that's reprehensible, because these pandemic supports actually ended up harming our economy, harming many, many, many Canadians, both mentally and physically. I mean, we're social creatures. We're not meant to be cut off from the rest of the world. And I know during the pandemic, like, there were days where you and I were at each other's throats because, like, it was just, it's not natural to be cooped up in the house like a prison with one or two people or however big your family is, like for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. Yeah,
it's sad actually. There's thousands and thousands of families that broke apart as a result of that, just because people couldn't take the emotional stress. But you know, the Liberals never like to talk about that because that doesn't fit the narrative.
Right.
And we have called the child care a slush fund and tried to cut programs that support the middle class. There is no more middle class. You've completely obliterated it. So, but this is the list. So they have 20. Now, the fascinating thing about this whole thing is they have allegedly they have these things that have, you know, 20,000 votes, 19,000, 14,000, and all of this. So that's interesting. What's also interesting is the fact that you assume that when you come on here and you say, all right, well,
over 20,000 people have voted for this video. Surely 20,000 people have watched this video.
Well, and also, surely you can only pick one of these, right? Well, no, let's so we can vote on this one. We can vote on this one. And, you know, the clowns jump up and down. Okay, fine. Oh, wait a minute. What was that? Hey, look, it looks like I can, you know, vote many times on the same one. Like, so this actually explains something else. So, you know, when we click on this, and you actually watch the views, so this has only been viewed 1,400 times.
But it's got over 20,000 upvotes.
So how would that happen?
Well, people clearly are just clicking the clowns and not watching the actual videos.
Well, and the people clicking these clowns are probably bots, staffers, and people that work for the Liberal Party.
Now, I will say that YouTube doesn't update the view count for the public as quickly as it would update the view count for the creators. So, for example, when we release a video, after the first hour, you might see it at 5,000 views as a viewer. But as a creator, we might see it at 10,000. And that's because our system on our side, on the back end, updates faster than it does to the rest of the public. However, after about
A day.
What would you say? Yeah, about a day, the view counts are pretty accurate. It even really updates within the hour. So if they're showing 20,000 views or 20,000 upvotes, we'll say, but only 1,400 views, you know, in the next hour, I would expect that to jump up to 20,000, or
Right.
even the hour after that. But it's not going to, because people aren't watching the videos. They're just clicking the clowns.
And these were uploaded 6 days ago. So each of these shorts was uploaded by the Liberal Party on July 22nd. So
there's a huge discrepancy here between people actually watching the videos and people clicking the clown buttons. I mean, you saw Ryan just go nuts on one of them and click, 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 right? And if you were to refresh the page, it would still be there. It doesn't go away. It doesn't... It's really a lazy way of creating a counter, isn't it?
Yep.
From like a website perspective.
Well, this is the laziest way to actually do it, because there's something that we call data validation in the data informatics world. And what that means is if you're actually trying to get real data to be able to show people, and you were to apply that methodology to this website, you would only let people vote once. So that's
not once per video, but just once on the whole page.
Once per page and once per field. Meaning, if I click on number two would rank up by 1, then I wouldn't be able to click that again, and then the rest of the page would lock, and I wouldn't be able to click on anything else. But clearly, they don't care.
No,
all they want to do is manufacture something that they can wave around, and you better believe they're going to be taking this and waving it in front of the House of Commons. So I almost want to, create a little program that will just continuously click on these things, so that way by the time we get to September, it reads over 100 million. That way, they can't come back and say, see, 100 million of Canadians. Oh, there's only 40 million. That makes us look bad, doesn't it? So it would be interesting to completely invalidate this entire website by just, having some bots go nuts. But this is what
we
you
won't,
have.
Okay? We're not doing it.
That's right. But this is
that's
what you
for
have.
Legal reasons.
The Liberals are literally going to the lengths to manufacture data and manufacture outrage against the Conservatives in order to give themselves any sort of leg up on them whatsoever. But, if this is the best they have, then I'm sorry. But Pierre is going to absolutely destroy you in the next election.